Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here, and bear with me. My head's fucking killing me. My eyesight's fucking with me. I'm not feeling as good as I did yesterday, and just yeah. But anyways, came across some problems with the epoxy resin and these acrylic water-based paints that I kind of want to fill in some of you guys about who are interested in doing maybe glaze coatings or making your own inlays, shit like that. Uh, on the green kit guitar that I did, that gem style, this is the paint that I used, which was the same acrylic water-based paint that I used, that I'm using on this guitar, this kick too, the headless guitar. And I really didn't come across too many problems other than mixing not enough paint into the epoxy resin and changing the color going up the neck. So it was darker and then it got to lighter. So I ended up fixing that. Basically routing out and starting from scratch. Not a big deal, not a problem. But I'm finding out with using this water-based acrylics with this glaze coating that I've been using, that certain things don't work out the way that you want them to, especially the smaller the inlay, it don't work out. Now, working with automotive shit, everything has a chain reaction. You can't spray fucking lacquer over enamel. It acts like fucking paint remover. Okay, there's a chain reaction right there. If you don't scuff a shiny surface, if you don't sand a shiny surface, wet sanding it, say with either 400, 600, or 800 grit sandpaper, chances are that the paint that you put over that shiny surface is going to peel. So there's another reaction. It's not going to stick. It has nothing to bite into. And it's going to end up just fucking, coming off in sheets, coming off in chunks, coming off, as soon as you rub up against it. So you got to be careful with that. Well, with this epoxy resin stuff, I've been doing the sanding part, so it has something to bite into. But the mixing part is where the chemical reaction starts. Now, the epoxy resin I've been using is a two-part epoxy resin. You have your hardener and your resin, and you mix equal parts together. Now, when I did the gem style kit guitar, I wrote down how I was doing this. Just this way, when I do it again, I don't fuck up. Because the first test that I did, I fucked up. So what I was doing is I was doing a certain amount of the resin, adding the paint to the resin. And then as you add the paint to the resin kind of goes up a little bit in the mixing cup. So I was adding a equal amount of the hardener to that. So both still kind of match, if you're following me. Mix the hardener or the, normally I would mix the fucking resin into the hardener because you're always going to lose a little bit of one from the other. If you mix in, I'd rather lose a little bit of the resin and a little bit of the hardener. Mix it up for about 8 minutes and time yourself to make sure that that shit is mixed and mixed thoroughly. Go ahead and do your pour. All right, so on the green, which I used the acrylic water-based green, the neck and everything else came out perfect. I had no problems as far as the epoxy resin not curing, hardening up, and everything worked out fine. But I'm finding out the smaller the object is, the smaller your project is that you're using these epoxy resins with this acrylic water base, the more difficult or the more it doesn't cure properly. Okay. Now, you're adding water to basically the glaze coat, and as the glaze coat heats up during its curing process, it evaporates that water. That water is able to escape into the atmosphere, hardening up, no problems at all. Now, the extras that I had left over that I ended up throwing away from my mixing, that shit hardened like a rock. All right. Now, when I started doing the neck for the headless kick guitar, I filled in a couple of these guys with actually all of them I filled in with the pink. And then I was going to fill in the orange. Well, I let the pink set up 24 hours. All right. And took a toothpick because it didn't look right. Took a toothpick to it and found that it was still rubbery. I mean, like rubber, rubber, like a little rubber softball. And it didn't quite cure as hard as it's supposed to, you know. So I was kind of looking into this a little bit more, went to a few forums about it, and the forum that I found about using the water-based acrylics with glaze coatings was for basically larger areas, larger surfaces, bigger, you know, molds and shit like that. Why? Because the glaze coating has a chance to heat up to evaporate the water that's inside of the acrylic, the paints that I've been using. On this neck, there is no room for it to heat up the way it would normally if it was in a larger mass, and therefore it stayed rubbery. So a guy was telling me, he says, do you have any drinking straws? I says, yes, I do. He says, what size are the diameter of the holes that are in your neck? He says, they should be pretty damn close to a drinking straw. If not, you can get a drill bit and kind of make them. Well, after removing the inlays on this, now I didn't open up these holes any more than what they are. So here is a drinking straw, and it fits like a glove in the hole. So what a guy was telling me to do was get a drinking straw, which it just so happened that my kid has drinking straws that are fluorescent pink, almost looks like a purple, but it's pink, and fluorescent orange drinking straws. Says, oh, you know, this is going to work out pretty good. Now, I got to tell you, if you know how thick epoxy resins are, they are thick. And to try to pour them into a small diameter drinking straw, good luck with that. Talk about making a mess, and keep in mind that you need a a toothpick or something that you can stick inside of the drinking straw to break the bubble. Kind of like when you're trying to get fucking ketchup out of the bottle and you got the air pocket. Well, that does the same thing with this. So you got to break that bubble before you could fill it up. Now I filled these guys up all the way. I've got 2 of these that are filled, and I had 2 of the purple or pink that were filled as well. So I did that. And the guy says, well, if they stay rubbery, they don't cure up the way they're supposed to, what you could do is you can measure the diameter, the depth diameter of the holes that are inside of the neck of the guitar, and you can cut your little inlays out of the straw shorter than that. This way you could insert your inlay and then pour a little bit of the clear glaze coating on top of that. That will cure up, since there's nothing mixed in it. That will cure up hard as a rock, and you'll be able to shape and you know, get everything flush with the fretboard. So I thought about it, and I ended up making a bunch of these little guys. So here are the purple, or the fluorescent pink, and they are basically the same color as the bottle of the paint. So I thought about it, I did it, and come to find out is the Rubbery. So I made a bunch of, little tiny rubber balls. And he says that's fine. He says it'll seal and become permanent part of the neck. You won't have to worry about anything. But looking at this, I started to do it a little bit, and I was looking at it. It's like, well, I can still see a ring of the wood around the top of the inlay. And I want the inlay to be flush with the neck. Okay, so that doing it the way this guy was saying to do it is out, because it's not going to give me the look that I'm wanting for it. So then I went on to this website. Actually, it was a forum that I went on. It was Resin Obsession. Basically, a bunch of people who are hobbyists who, you know, play with the epoxy resins, you know, glaze coatings and everything else, tables, chairs, whatever you want, you know, that's what these guys do, jewelry. They also sell a lot of products that are for epoxy resin. So again, it is called Resin Obsession is the website. And the prices are pretty reasonable as far as what he's looking for some of the shit that he sells. So explained to him what I was doing and how I was doing it. So he set me up with, the first thing he set me up was a Day Glow in the Dark powder single 1 ounce packages. All right, so they have basically, shit, I don't know how many fucking colors there are over here. There's 8 different colors that you can choose from. And all you do is mix the powder in with whatever epoxy resins that you're using. And from what they're saying, um, they will work with basically any epoxy resins. So it's like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for. The only problem with it is that you better mix the appropriate amount of epoxy resin, number one, because you're going to be wasting the powder when you throw the shit away, number two. Also, the more or depth in color, the more of the powder you're going to use. So if I'm trying to get it to be this dark, or even this dark, which is what I'm shooting for, I'm going to be using a lot of powder to do so. Less resin, more powder, and then less waste. Then he sent me another email, basically showing me. Here we go. Come on, click on this. Illuminated Colorants complete set of 4 fluorescent liquid pigments, which you have a red, green, orange, and a yellow. And from what the photos look like, as far as this goes, with some of the things that they're using as examples, it's kind of what I'm looking for, exception of the red. I want it to be a pink, but I can alter that myself. And what this is, it's $25.99 for the 4 colors, and I believe they are 1 ounce, 1.8 ounce bottles. I think they are, and from doing the reviews and stuff on that, this stuff that this guy sells works great with epoxy resins. So I bought a set of the powders, which the powders run from the kit with the bottles of the fluorescent colors, which is only 4 colors, is $25.99. And then for the powder form, you get 1 ounce bags, and they're $6.99 a bag, which used to be $9.99 a bag. He's got it on a sale going on right now. So I picked up the fluorescent orange and the fluorescent pink. So instead of doing this in a way that I'm not too satisfied, happy with, whatever, I could do it with these little pieces of rubberized straws with the epoxy resin in them, or I can do it the right way. Mix it up with the epoxy, mix the pigments with the epoxy resin. Now, there's nothing wrong with using the acrylic water base for large areas in your epoxy resin. Excuse me. For larger areas, it's able to go through its curing process to where it heats up. It'll remove or push out, evaporate, whatever you want to call it, the water that is inside the paints, curing the way it's supposed to. And that's exactly what it did with the gem style kick guitar. It was able to heat up the way it's supposed to, pushing out whatever type of water that is inside these acrylic paints and curing properly. For something this size as an inlay, which is a lot smaller than what the inlays are on that neck, yeah, it's not working so good. So that's the dilemma. That's basically where I'm sitting at right now, and everything's going to be on hold until I could work on other things. That's not a big deal, and I probably am, but I'm waiting for these colors to come in. That way I can work on this the way it's supposed to. So if you guys do any type of epoxy resins and stuff, and you want to get into coloring the epoxy resin, making it glow in the dark and stuff, go to Resin Obsession. Just go to Google, type in Resin Obsession, and these guys will point you. They're real nice guys. They will point you in the right direction of what you're wanting to do with your project. If you're into making jewelry or costume jewelry, basically, or any type of an art project, and you want to give that some type of a tint, even if you want to tint the epoxy resin to where it's transparent, you still have the color, but it's transparent. These guys will point you in the right direction as far as including molds. They sell molds too. So if you're looking for a silicone mold, the waxes that you would put in the silicone mold, that way the epoxy resin doesn't stick to it, they've got it. And I'm going to be using these guys for a lot more projects than just what I'm doing right now, because I have a few other things that I have in mind, and some ideas of making certain things. Again, with epoxy resins, if you have, I don't fucking know, if you have a pencil eraser that you want to embed in fucking epoxy resin for some fucking reason, you can do this. You know, if you find a bug or something that you're interested in, and you know the legs are still attached and shit like that, you can embed it in epoxy resin. Animals, I mean, just almost anything, a leaf, you can embed in epoxy resin, and nothing's going to happen to it. It'll be that way for as long as that epoxy resin doesn't break, shatter, crack, whatever. It's there. And I've had some ideas of doing a few things with just like certain things that I found that I was like, oh, this would look cool in epoxy resin. The company that my father works for is a screw manufacturer. And basically what I wanted to do was kind of get a square mold and embed a bunch of different type of fasteners that they make inside of the epoxy resin, make paperweights. You know, do something. You know, just the keep occupied, and you know, it's hobby shit. This is hobby stuff, man. I mean, fucking enjoy. So you guys take care, have a good one, and thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps with anybody who is using epoxy resins or glaze coatings, and you know what kind of stay away from for small areas as far as paints goes. Again, the website is called Resin Obsession. If you're interested in it, go over there, check them out. You know, it ain't gonna hurt nothing. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one. Behave yourselves. Keep rocking. Keep playing guitar. Keep practicing guitar. Keep doing whatever. Just keep up. Keep it up. Later.